Okay, so we will get going tonight. It's a Medicare kind of 101. I'll have plenty of time at the end to answer any questions. I'm going to go over a whole bunch of things kind of pertinent to probably most of you, I hope. And if we don't get something that's pertinent for you, of course, ask questions at the end. And my name is Joanne Giardini-Russell, and I work with and run Giardini Medicare. I think I see a lot of familiar names on this list, but not a lot of new people too. I am putting everybody on mute as you come in. Okay, so just FYI, this is recorded. I will send the recording out typically the very next day. The recording goes out to people. Excuse me, feel free to share. I'm coming off a cold, so sorry about my voice. But feel free to share this, review it. We're going to start holding these probably once a month. We'll skip December, but come January, we're going to start with a bunch of new topics because we are finding that the webinars are pretty helpful in terms of especially the Q&A section. Okay, so what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to try and get through the first part of the presentation, which is kind of like a review of Medicare, and then talk about things we see in the future and things that are going on now and some things you need to be doing now if you're in Medicare, and some things probably you don't need to be doing if you're not in the Medicare system. And then after that, we'll just get into the Q&A. So I don't want to drag out the beginning part because some of you have heard this before and some of it is just not going to pertain to everybody. So I think the Q&A to me is probably sometimes the most helpful parts of any of these presentations. So we'll kind of just dive right into that. Giardini Medicare, who we are and kind of why we're here tonight, but we're an insurance agency, and a lot of people don't realize that Medicare specialized insurance agents even exist. We hear that a lot, just like I didn't know you all kind of existed. We do. We handle all the products that are related to Medicare. So when I say products related to Medicare, I mean things like Medicare supplements, Medigap, Medicare Advantage, cancer plans, short-term care plans, hospital indemnity plans. We help navigate prescription drug plans. I'll talk about that a little too. And then we're here as people enroll through us, we're here with all the service issues that people have. It could be something simple like I forget what account I'm paying my Medigap premium from, or hey, this claim was denied. How come? Like my son caught one today that they billed it as a physical, so that you're not going to get a CAT scan covered if the doctor bills it as a physical, right? So things like that. So we can kind of decipher a lot of this stuff for you because we've been doing this for so long. But we help people, and we also kind of help people guide them into Medicare with the government. All right. So we give you all sorts of tips and coach you, but we're not paid by the government. We're not employed by the government. Okay. So just kind of keep that in mind. Our services are free to the consumer. Okay. So insurance carriers compensate us. You don't as the client. I will tell you that there's a lot of changes going on with that. You may have heard that from other people, but a lot of agents are not being compensated by insurance companies for various things. So what we have to do sometimes is just say, hey, that is just not something we can do for you. We'll give you our advice. We'll give you the steps to take, and we'll help you in that capacity. We just can't do it for you because we can't take 2 hours of our agent's time and we don't get paid for that. So it's unfortunate that the carriers just kind of put us in that position these days. It is getting worse. And unfortunately, it's not an easy product, an easy thing for people that really need help with it. So apologies on behalf of our industry, but that is kind of how it's working right now. So anyway, so that's kind of a background to who we are, what we do, sort of thing. As we head into next year, we are seeing prices increase with Medicare supplements, and you'll understand by the end of this tonight, hopefully, what Medicare supplements are versus Medicare Advantage plans. We're seeing PPOs that are going away in some cases. There's certain plans that have been absolutely just terminated by insurance companies. And there is a push from the insurance companies to kind of push people into HMOs, which are a little more restrictive and there's more cost containment. So that's why the insurance companies are kind of making that push. So we've seen a lot of changes in the last couple of years, even with the design of the Medicare Advantage products. Again, if you don't even know what Medicare Advantage is or Medicare supplement, we'll go through that. But those of you that are in that maybe one of those, excuse me, one of those products, very well that you might have gotten a termination letter. So we'll talk about what you can do if that happens to you. We're also seeing a lot of pricing and coverage changes with drug plans. There was a drug plan in Michigan with that a few years ago that was literally $3 and went to $5 and went to $28. This year it's $78. Okay, so that over a couple of years, that gets people's attention. So we're always telling people, make sure you're checking your drug plan annually and kind of coaching them through that kind of stuff. We're also seeing, just like the rest of the world, in terms of all healthcare and really all products, I will say, is the cost shifting to the consumer. It's just the last few years have really felt this ratchet up that whether it's deductibles, copays, coinsurance, premiums, all those things, there has been a pretty dramatic shift to the consumer. So the last few years, we've been really talking more and providing more cancer policies, indemnity policies, heart attack, stroke policies, short-term care. I'll talk to you a little bit about those things and what they are. We do work with those products, and they're just a good buffer. They just are a good buffer for you all to get cash to then turn around and pay the bills. Um, there's nothing else we can do in terms of reducing costs sometimes. So sometimes insulating and transferring that risk to an insurance company is a good solution. So those are some of the things that are, changes coming down the pipeline. Um, when I talk about Medicare, and this kind of leads me into the Medicare portion of what we're talking about tonight, is it's a tough industry, all right? It's a tough um, topic for many of you to tackle. We hear all the time from very, very intelligent people like, hey, I'm really pretty smart and I can't understand this. We have doctors that are clients, lawyers, all sorts of people that you would just say and very intelligent. They have a hard time with Medicare. So it's kind of in some ways probably designed to be confusing, because the more confusing it is, the more mistakes you all will make. And that usually means lost dollars for you all. Okay. So I think it's a little bit designed that way, but again, there's a lot of confusion. This is just a good example. So this piece I always put up here about Costco, put this piece out long ago, 5 years ago, 2019, almost 6 years ago. And in the upper right, you'll just see where it says, and this is why I circle this box. First, you need to enroll in Medicare when you're first eligible, which for most people is age 65. But if you postpone it, it will result in a Plan B, which is Part B late enrollment penalty. So the fact that they put that in there, number one, it's just completely wrong. And number two, it just shows everybody that this is just bad information. And Costco is a well-known enough name that when people put out or read the magazine, they would be typically talking to a friend like, well, I saw that too. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get this penalty. I would say 50 to 60% of you can defer Part B a lot if you're working. If you're on employer coverage, we'll touch on this too. But many, many people do not sign up when they're first eligible at age 65. They don't have to do that. But if you were reading this magazine years ago and you talk to a friend, you're all starting to do the wrong thing. And so half of Medicare is knowing the right thing to do, and then they're just avoiding the others. So it's avoiding some of the information that comes from HR, from even group benefit people, from Social Security themselves. They give bad information. So it's challenging. It's very, very challenging in terms of how do you get the right information and where do you get it from? So what we do is we spend all of our time transitioning people into the Medicare system. So we're always talking to the consumer, and this is either our communications, our videos, our agents, anybody. But what is Medicare? And we'll talk about that tonight in terms of it's just health insurance. Okay, so it is only health insurance. It comes from the federal government, but it is health insurance. So do you need it is like one of the biggest questions, and our industry does not spend the time talking about, do you actually need Medicare? So think about your mailbox and your robocalls and all that. Does anyone stop and just say, oh, well, you're turning 65 but you're still working, Mr. Smith, so you really don't need me as a service? It's no, it's here's a robocall, here, sign up, you got to do this, you got to do this. It's all those door-to-door folks and the robocalls that drive you crazy, and the postcards, all that stuff. They never stop to ask, like, does Mr. Smith really need Medicare? Well, no, he doesn't. He's working and he's going to work till he's 70 years old. So you got to be careful with that. And so we've created some tools around that question, but that is one of our first questions. And we need to know that even if you get an appointment on our calendar. If you don't need Medicare for 5 years, there's really no reason to have an appointment. We can't take the time now because this person right behind you, they do need Medicare and we have to set their stuff up. So if you do need it, how do you go get it? right? Do you go into an office? Do you go online? Do you make a phone call? You got a shutdown that just happened. How did you, survive those 40 days, that kind of stuff. So we can help with all those things. And then we want to talk to you about how much it costs, because a lot of people tend to think it's free, and it is certainly not free. And you're going to see some of the cost and you'll see how much it costs, but it is not free. And how do you put all this stuff together? So if you're picking an Advantage plan, how does that work? How does a supplement work? What ID cards do you get? What ID cards do you show at the doctor's office? How you pay what bill? You got 3 or 4 or 5 things going. It can get overwhelming, right? So we want you all to the point where you understand what you got. We understand how it's all being paid for, handled, et cetera. We want you to understand what you need to do at renewal time and not to do at renewal time. And then we just want you to go relax and enjoy retirement, because we always hear from people too that it's just a challenging time. Retiring is a big project. You've got projects with your 401ks and your IRA, all this kind of stuff. And then you've got Medicare. So Medicare is a big piece. So we want to try and take that off your plate, make it as easy as we can. So again, we are always circling back to that question of, do I need Medicare? So we came up with this a few years ago. It's just a website, and you can feel free to take any of these pictures you want. Again, it will be recorded, but do I need Medicare.com on the very, very top here is a form that has helped immensely. So we've had thousands of these forms come in. And the first question, like we said, is you should be stopping and pausing saying, hey, do I really need Medicare at 65? Everybody tells me blah, 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 blah. Do I need to do this? All right. So when you click that green button, it's going to go to a form that looks like this. And then you're gonna answer questions for us that we need to know to give you the proper answer. So the questions are you collecting Social Security? What kind of coverage do you have today? Do you have COBRA? Do you have ACA coverage? Do you have work insurance through a spouse, for yourself, as a small employer, a large employer, et cetera? There's so many situations, Christian health shares, right? So what kind of coverage do you have today? That tells us sometimes what you need to do at 65 years old. Are you putting money into a health savings account? Okay, so if you are, that's going to be one answer. If you're not, that's a different answer. Then, do you have access, excuse me, to a retiree health insurance program? Do you have, a Michigan school teacher where you have to go through ORS? Do you have federal insurance? Do you have TRICARE for life? All those things right there, we don't handle those things. So we can't take appointments for people that have FEHB coverage, because it's a whole different land and a whole different world. So we can't advise you on that. So we need to find that out before we tell you to book an appointment, because then we find out you don't need us. So that's important to do. And then we also want to find out if you're even retiring right now. So many people fill this form out, say, I'm in the process of retiring, but they need Medicare in 2030. Well, in my opinion, that's not retiring today. I'm talking about, are you retiring in the next 4 to 6 months? And we should adapt that. We should change the verbiage on that form. Now that I think that through, because it's just, we don't need to know that you're retiring in 2030, because plans change, right? You might be thinking that, but then something happens next year with your health and you retire early. So then you can put little notes, things like that on the bottom, which is super helpful. And then what happens is you're going to get an email back from me. So it's like, hey, thanks for connecting with us. And then the situation is going to be recapped here. So in this case, hey, you're working for a large employer. You are putting money into a health savings account. Therefore, the best move for you to do is not to enroll into either Part A or Part B of Medicare. We send a little CMS fact sheet from Medicare, so you can kind of know that we're telling the truth, if you will. And then you have to plan for the 6-month retroactive rule with HSA. So this gets kind of confusing. We link our HSA Medicare video timing. So we have a YouTube video that talks to you all about HSAs. And then we have another one that's just an on-demand employer webinar, basically for over 20 if you're working for the large employer. And then we have another video on YouTube, so we can point you to all these kind of resources. But anyway, you get this email that's a roadmap as to what you need to do specifically. And it's helpful, because then you can take that, you can bring it to your financial planner, your CPA, whatever, but you have something there based on the answers you gave us. Okay, so that's been super, super helpful. So again, that's all kind of pre-Medicare, figuring out if you need it. And then when you get to the point where, okay, I do need Medicare, or maybe I should start thinking about it and learning a little bit about it, you're going to want to understand the basics of Medicare, which is just Part A and Part B. And again, this is with the federal government. All right. So again, I do not work for the government. We do not work for the government, but this is government insurance. So Part A and Part B are the two components provided to you from the federal government. Okay. Part A is typically free for most people. It's prepaid. I shouldn't call it free, but it's prepaid. You've been prepaying for that your a whole life through your payroll taxes. So if you ever look on your payroll stub, it says M Care. That's your little payroll prepayment for Part A is an Apple insurance, and that's hospital coverage. It covers hospitals, it can cover skilled nursing, it can cover some home health care, it can cover hospice, but that's all Part A as an Apple services. They do have deductibles, there's co-insurance, you can see co-pays, things like that. I want you just to kind of see those numbers on the left-hand side. Don't worry too much about the numbers because those are really going to be covered typically by a product. So don't worry too much, like I said, about the numbers. I just want you to see that there are deductibles, co-pays, things like that there. On the other side, you've got the green side is Part B services, and that's your medical services. That's your doctors, your CAT scans, your chemo, your radiations, your X-rays, your durable medical equipment, wheelchairs, all sorts of things, all that stuff. So that is subjected to a deductible as well. And then it's co-insurance for everything. It's 20% co-insurance. So Medicare pays 80%, and then you're going to pay 20%. So those 20% are relating to the person paying the 20% co-insurance, but Medicare is going to pay 80%. So when people have Part A and Part B, these two pieces right here, they have what we call original Medicare. Okay. So when you hear me talk about original Medicare, traditional Medicare, I typically call it original Medicare. This right here. You have A and B. You don't have drug coverage. You don't have anything to supplement that 20%, but you have A and B with the federal government. And then there is a price tag for Part B. Currently, that price tag is $185 per month. It is expected to go to $206.50 per month starting in January. That's not super, super official, but it is probably going to happen. It's been the figure so far. In another few weeks, we're going to learn all the new numbers for the next year. And then what we do is we send that out to everybody that's in our distribution list. So you'll get that information as soon as we know that. So when I talk about Part A, this is super important to bring up that when we talk about Part A as an Apple, meaning hospital, skilled nursing, when I talk about skilled nursing, I think a lot of people just tend to think nursing home. Nursing home is not skilled nursing. Skilled nursing would be a well-bridge center, a rehab center, something where you need to go just for a couple weeks to rehab. You're not ready to go home yet, maybe after a knee replacement. That's skilled nursing. Nursing home would be something more long care, memory care facilities, things where people will go for 2 months to 2 years, who knows, right? So they're not one and the same. And this is just super important for people to understand that long-term care and custodial care things are not covered by Medicare. So many people think that. We get lots of phone calls from the 60-year-old child who is calling to say, hey, my dad's 85. He fell. He needs some, caretaking services during the day from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock every day until I get home from work and I can go check on him, things like that. The question is always who's going to pay for that after we tell them Medicare will not. It's private pay. Okay, so it is private pay from you, from your family, anybody, right? It's going to be private pay, or your kids, your friends, your family, someone's going to have to step up and do those things for you. So we provide what we call short-term care. It is not long-term care insurance, which people have generally heard of long-term care. For some reason, they've never heard of short-term care. So short-term care is the same exact insurance as long-term care. It's just on a short-term care chassis. That just means 52 weeks and below. It's 1 year, 360 days or lower in terms of coverage versus 360 and plus on the long-term care side. The bonus for short-term care is that it's much less expensive than long-term care. It is there when you need it immediately. It starts at day zero, basically day one when you need it. And it provides you money, cash benefits so that you can go pay for caretakers. So if your dad falls at 85 and he has this, he can get with certain companies up to $1,200 or $2,000 a week to pay for services. So you make a claim, you get $1,500 a week in cash, and dad can go buy his services that he needs, and the family needs to take care of that. You got to get it while you're young and healthy. So even if you're not going onto Medicare for 5 years, reach out to us because we can help with this now, and you need to get it when you're younger and healthy. It's just an important thing that again people just don't plan for. And then when we get you on the phone at 70, sometimes it's too late. For lots of people it's too late, so think about that. Again, it's just really just not, people are not aware of that. I do have a YouTube video all about a 45-minute session, and in January our session is going to be on short-term care, the next one we have like tonight. Part B, the other thing to remember with Part B as in boy coverage is that there's no cap to that. So if you have just Part A and Part B and you have no protection for that 20% overage, you will not have a maximum out of pocket. Okay, there is no cap to that. You can be at 50, 60, $70,000. We have seen people with cancer surgeries hit 40, $50,000 in 1 year, and they can't get a Medicare supplement to cover that because of pre-existing conditions, and they refuse to have a Medicare Advantage in plan. So they are literally paying 50 grand. Okay. So it's very real. Just prepare yourself. Do not go uncapped, if you will. I would either definitely get a Medicare supplement or a Medicare Advantage plan. Excuse me. So Leonard, I do see your question. I will answer that right now. Why is it too late to enroll in short-term care? The cost or the exclusion is typically health. So if somebody waits till they're 70 to look at short-term care, a lot of times they've developed something, they had a stent put in 2 years ago or things like that. We can handle the Medicare, but it doesn't mean they can actually qualify for that short-term care. So short-term care, people can buy it all the way at age 40 plus. And so it's just beneficial for the younger folks to get it while they're younger. And they also lock in the rate, Leonard, just because your cost is locked in at 55, 60, et cetera, et cetera. So good question there. So we're always going through some of these questions, right? So I talked about, the workplace. I'm going to touch on that in a second again, but we're always trying to figure out like, okay, what are you eligible for? What kind of coverage do you have? As I mentioned before, do you have COBRA? All those things. We need to screen for some of those things because we also need to tell you that if you have COBRA insurance, you need to go get Part B of Medicare because Medicare is primary. So we catch lots of mistakes with COBRA, people not getting the coverage coordination that they need, and then they have a big claims issue. We also see that with the small employer. So small employer space, same thing. So we're again, our ears and our eyes are always, we're looking at different things than you all are. So unfortunately, with the employer size, it's a good example is, there's 20 and up, 20 and over and 20 and under in terms of a workplace situation. What one you work for is going to matter based on what we're going to say you have to do. So if you're work at a place that has 8 employees on the, at the employer place and you have a small group plan, we're going to say you have to go get Medicare Part B. 99.9% of the time you have to get Part B. If you don't, you will have a claims issue because if you have a heart attack, they will bill the insurance company that you have, and the insurance company can turn around and point the finger at you saying, well, you didn't get Part B, so you owe 80% of that claim. Medicare would have paid it and you didn't have Medicare. It's very, very real that has happened. And then if it's over 20 people, you can defer Part B. You don't have to get that. Now, here's what happens when you call Social Security, because I just went through this with somebody via email recently. It was determined that he has a small employer, and we went back and forth, back and forth. He finally understood what I was talking about, but he has to go get Part B. He just has to go get Part B. So he went to Social Security, called him or went in, I don't remember, and they told him, well, you're still working. You don't need Part B. He came to me and said, I can't believe they don't even know. And they do know. They just don't ask the question, is it a small employer or a large employer? So they give countless numbers of poor advice just based on that. And we have seen many of those situations. They always say, are you still working? They never ask 20 over, 20 under. And they really cause claims issues. They really, really do. So again, just be careful. Remember too that Social Security, their only job is to sign you up for Medicare. That's it. They are not there to give advice. They're not there to tell you to get a drug plan. They are not even supposed to give advice. So it's challenging, right? You're signing up for Medicare through Social Security, who don't pay attention to the rules or give you the proper instructions for those things. So it's just a super challenging thing. This little clip right here is just for the people that are still working, because again, there's so many people that are still working at 65. So I want you to think of these things. Now, this year's a little unique in that employer insurance is going up really high, right? So you're seeing a lot of your group plans, you're getting pretty high increases to some degree. The employers just cannot absorb all these increases any longer. So they're passing along a chunk of the premium is coming to you. So more people this year are looking at Medicare like, hey, I'm 65 now. Should I be going to Medicare instead? You can, but don't forget, you got to look at a whole bunch of different things. What's the cost from your paycheck? How much are you actually paying? Who else do you have on your plan? If you have a spouse that is only 63, how is that person going to get their coverage? And find out how much, your spouse, if the spouse is 67 though, find out how much they're charging for the spouse, because sometimes they're charging $800 a month from your paycheck for your spouse. Sometimes it's $100. So it's all over the map, right? So you want to look at those types of things. And sometimes there's no obvious answer. Sometimes there is. Sometimes people leave the employer's work insurance just because maybe they want different networks. They want a certain surgeon to work with and things like that, and their employer plan doesn't allow them to do that. But once you're 65, you can go to Medicare. You don't have to stay with the work insurance. And a lot of people tend to think just because you have work insurance available to you, they think they have to take it. They do not. Okay, that can go to Medicare. So check all these things. I know this is enrollment time for most of you out there, but you got to be careful with who else is on your plan. Like I said, if it's a younger spouse and maybe a 24-year-old kid, what are they going to do? Because you've seen the ACA headlines and stuff. It's probably not a good situation for them. And you'll be looking at COBRA and some things like that. And just to note, we do not do under 65 health insurance. We do refer that to a couple different firms, but we don't actively do the work for the under 65 space. Something to consider, what we just talked about, the short-term care, and consider cancer plans, hospital indemnity plans. They're always a buffer to any type of insurance you have. You can get cancer coverage when you're 55 or 40. My 23-year-old has a cancer plan for $9 a month for a huge amount of coverage. It's so cheap, and those prices are locked as you know, from a young, her rate is locked from 22 onward. So consider those, because you don't have to be on Medicare to get those plans. A lot of people think you do as well. You do not. So this is a whole webinar here that we built. It's about 45 minutes also about the employer space. So this is for the over 20 situations. You're working at Ford Motor Company or a large employer. That would pertain to you, and everything is built into that. Okay, so I can't dive into everything about everything tonight. So I'm going to give you, a bunch of different videos, but that one has everything that we could think of related to the situation, what you might be looking at, and questions you should ask yourself. We also on YouTube, like I said, have the under 20 space. It's just not a separately built webinar, just because it's not as common as the over 20 situation. So we'll dive into the cost of Medicare. Now, this is 2025 cost. Again, remember, we do not have 2026 numbers yet. What happens is somebody files for Medicare this year in 2025, the federal government is looking at their tax return from 2023. So they're looking at your modified adjusted gross income, okay? And then on the very, very bottom line, it tells you what is the modified adjusted gross income. Sometimes it's easier just to ask your CPA what yours is. And what they're doing is they're looking at your tax filing status. Were you filing jointly? Was it an individual return? Rarely do we see married and filing separately. So I'm not even really going to talk about that, but we look at the individual or the joint. So you can see what happens is they look at the 2023 tax return and they go to that and they pull your number essentially. And this affects both people in the household. Okay, so if you have a spouse and they're on Medicare as well, and that person never worked even, they're going to be impacted just as you are. So the number you see on the far right-hand side is the monthly premium, and that premium correlates to the income level. And it's income, okay? It's not net worth, this is income. So what happens a lot of time is that people retire. So they might have a high income and then retire in 2025. And as we're talking, they're like, well, I don't make 400,000 anymore because I'm going to be retired next year living off of 150,000. That's fine. So what happens is I'm going to show you this form right away. You're going to file this form. And this is something we talk people through too, is this form SSA 44. If this is you had a high income, you're retiring now, January income's going to go down. Great. Put in your name, your social security number. You're going to check the box here that says work stoppage right there. Work stoppage means I stopped working. You're going to put a piece of paper in there that just basically says, hey, congratulations, you've retired from Ford Motor Company. One piece of paper. That's all you need to do. That's your proof, if you will. And this is not anything tax return based. This is nothing other than you filling out this piece of paper. Then in step 2, you're going to put tax year 2026 adjusted gross income. I expect it to be $150,000, and it's just your expectation. And that's it. And you file that form, and then it comes back and they reduce you. If you, in that case, you reduce to 150, you're in the bottom tier. So you went from $480 per month per person at 400,000 down to 185 per person per month. Definitely worth doing the form. Okay. This whole thing is called IRMA. So if you hear people talking about IRMA, it's an income related monthly adjusted amount. That just means it's a surcharge, a tax, if you will, on Medicare high income people. There's also an IRMA charge or surcharge on the drug plan side of things. Just remember that this doesn't mean you have extra drug coverage. It just means you're paying another surcharge. This is just a tax. Okay, this confuses a lot of people, but you're paying your premium for your drug plan, if there is a premium, and then some. You're paying your tax. If again, you get reduced from the top or the upper tiers to the lower one, great. The charge on this side will go away as well. So don't forget about the SSA 44. A lot of people we meet 7 years later, like, I had no idea I could do that. They paid an extra 2 years of higher income. They didn't need to. Right here is another calculator that we have built all for IRMA. So if you go here, you can go into here, you can play around with numbers of income, things like that. There's a video in there showing you exactly how to fill out the form that I just showed you, excuse me, and then the form is linked in there as well. So you'll get the PDF, how to do the form, all the information about it, play with your numbers, things like that, okay? Life events, it talks about all that kind of stuff on this particular website of ours. So let's go on with the person that needs Medicare, right? So they're going to enroll in either their initial enrollment period, which just basically means, hey, you're turning 65 soon, in your March of 2026 turning 65. So guess what? You get to go to Medicare if you need it or want it, or you're that person that's retiring this year. So lots of people are retiring at the end of this year. These people are using a form called an L564. This is another important form to know about. And what it is if you're over 65 years old, because you didn't sign up when you were offered it at 65 years old because you didn't need it, that's fine. Now you're going to go get a special enrollment period. This just means, hey, I'm retiring now. I'm leaving employer coverage, and you need to fill this form out. Your employer is going to sign off that you've had coverage with them since you were 65 years old. That is telling Social Security and the government basically that, hey, Mr. Smith didn't need Medicare because he was working. So your employer is signing off. The form goes to Social Security, then they process that and just say, okay, here's your Part B coverage. Now you can have Medicare. Pick the date you want. So you get to pick the date. So all of our people right now that are December 31st leaving employer coverage, there's a lot of January 1st. Right. So we're giving them, and just we say, tell them you want January 1st coverage, put it on the form here. This is what to do. So we coach through all this stuff right here. Everything I've talked about thus far is the government form. Okay. This is, the government portion. And again, we don't work for the government, but this is our coaching services to get you through this piece of it. Michael, the IRMA form can be filed at any time. You can fill it out as soon as, well, I shouldn't say it's any time. It's basically when you get your first bill. So if you get a bill when you're new to Medicare, you're going to get like a series of bills. You're going to get the first one that says, hey, congratulations, you have Medicare. And all they do is they factor out the standard $185 times 3. Typically, it's quarterly. When you get that bill, don't file the IRMA form yet. File the IRMA form when you get the second bill saying, hey, we looked at your tax return and you made a lot of more money than we thought. We want more money from you. At that point, that's the time to send the IRMA, the SSA 44 form in. Okay, so that is a good thing to bring up. All right, so that's the special enrollment period. This is just a special thing for those of you with HSAs. I'm not, again, I don't want to get too deep into HSAs. We got a whole video about that too, but just know that if you're over 65, this is not for a 65-year-old. This is for someone that might be 70 years old. They're turning their Medicare on because they're 70 years old now and now retiring. Just remember that your Part A will back up 6 months. And this is just showing a real person that filed for their Medicare in May because they needed an August 1st start date. So right around May is when you'd want to do this. His Part A backed up to November of the prior year, which means you have to stop contributing to that HSA the prior October 31st. So again, it gets a little confusing. Like I said, we do have the whole HSA video right here. We just want people to know that there's that rollback rule, but it's later. It's not when people turn 65. I just got an email today from an HR person saying, hey, the employee, he has to stop at 64 and a half putting money in, correct? I'm like, no, he can go all the way till 65. So HR doesn't understand it sometimes. It's just, again, there's so many little rules around this. So we have a whole video all about HSAs. You can use the funds inside your HSA, but you can't contribute any longer if you're on Medicare. And just know with HSA funds, you can't use it for Medicare supplements. All right. And then a lot of people tend to think that, okay, I'll just get Medicare Part A, but my employer is putting money into the HSA. I'm not. So therefore, that doesn't count. Well, it does count. Right. Nobody can put money in there. Flexible spending account is just fine, not an HSA. Okay, so again, watch the video just for far more detail than I can go into tonight. So we get to the person where Mr. Smith is now, where he's now retired. We got his Part A and Part B going. He's ready to go. He needs a January 1st, right? So this is the point where we're on the phone with the person talking about your options. So these are your other choices of products. You have 2 choices. This is for the Medicare New Handbook. This is the new version, 2026. I love the simplicity of this page, just because it is just showing that if you have original Medicare, which is Part A and Part B, right? Original means Part A and Part B, as I showed you way back in the beginning. And you have that 20% hole, right? So on the original Medicare left-hand side, the simplicity of original Medicare is you can use any doctor or hospital that takes Medicare anywhere in the United States. Fabulous, great, easy. Everybody takes Medicare for the most part, right? You got a 20% co-insurance. So what you can do on the very bottom, it says you can add a supplement. So you can add Medicare supplement insurance, which is called Medigap. So those two things are identical. Okay, same thing, same thing, same thing. You can also add Part D. You absolutely should add Part D, which is drug coverage. So you have it. That's your package. That's it. That is your package. You have A and B with the government. You have a Plan G, Plan N, high deductible, which whatever one of Medigaps you want to look at, that's another conversation. But that's what you're talking to us about, right? Then a drug plan. We got to figure out which drug plan is best for you. The other choice you have, and this is why it's so important to understand, you're hearing me say you have two choices. Two, okay? Two choices, not just one. Medicare Advantage is on the right-hand side. Now, Medicare Advantage, also known as Part C, there is no technically Part C of Medicare. There's not A, B, C, and D. There is A and B, but they call C Medicare Advantage. But Medicare Advantage, it's just super important to understand that it's a Medicare approved plan. So CMS, which is Medicare, they sign off. They sign off that Blue Cross, HAP, Aetna, Humana, United Healthcare, all those folks, they can offer you an alternative to original Medicare for your health and drug coverage. So it's an alternative to original Medicare. You do not have original Medicare making your decisions any longer if you enroll into an Advantage plan. They bundle these services together. So you've usually got Part A and B coverages, meaning they have to offer what A and B do, but they can deliver it to you in a different manner. Okay. You may need to use doctors in its network and get approval for certain drugs or services. You might need approval for a PET scan. You will, most likely. You might need approval for certain medications. Okay. So that is very, very similar to your work insurance, where you might need prior authorization. You have to have certain networks and things like that. Original Medicare on the left-hand side is unlike any of those coverages. You can get it, you can go anywhere you want. Nobody but Medicare and your doctor make the decisions for you. No insurance companies coming in to telling you you can't get approved, you can't do this. Now, there is some talk at this point of in 2026, 6 different states introducing 17 procedures for some prior authorization with original Medicare. It hasn't happened yet. It is not, it's a formality. It's getting a lot of pushback in the government. So we'll see if it even happens. Okay. So before someone says, oh, I've heard that there's prior authorization with Medicare now, it could be tested a little bit next year. Again, we're not going to see it impact hardly anyone, but Medicare Advantage, different story. My own brother-in-law had an issue with the PET scan. He was declined a PET scan. He had UAW retiree coverage, and it was bad. It was very, very bad. It was a big delay in care. It was a denied PET scan. He didn't realize he could just go pay cash and get one done, so he never had one done, and it really altered his ultimate care, and he succumbed to melanoma in April. So, it can happen. I'm not saying that's normal by any means, because many people, millions of people love their plans, and they are fine for 25 years in those plans. It all comes down to what your health is like, and your tolerance, your risk tolerance, your financial, what you can afford to pay, and things like that. So just know that you have two choices. The big problem with our industry often is that people are not exposed to two choices. They're either, you get postcards in the mail, it's all Medicare Advantage focused, because what happens is the government pays the insurance companies to administer your care. So they're giving them money. So there's a lot of money in Medicare Advantage. So that's why if you look in your mailbox, you're not seeing anything related to Medigap, Plan G, supplements, things like that. You'll rarely see even a commercial on TV for a true Medicare supplement, but you'll see plenty of Humana commercials and HAP and all those kind of things. So if you notice too, look at the postcards as they come through. HAP is always showing somebody playing pickleball, and they're just these happy, healthy 65-year-olds. And it's just they want to attract the younger, healthier people, because if they're getting 1,200, 1,300 bucks a month from the government, that's just free money, right? They're not paying it out because you're hardly using care. So remember that. People always ask, well, how can they do it for free? That's how they do it for free. So this right here, I just want to show you just a quick example of the setup. So you've got somebody that is getting Medigap, and you've got somebody that's getting Medicare Advantage in these cases right here. And in both situations, the key highlighted part up there is that they're both paying that $185 premium. So just because the person with Medicare Advantage doesn't have original Medicare making the decisions, doesn't mean they don't pay their premium. They still pay Medicare, whatever their premium is. Even if it's a higher income person and they're paying $400, $500, $600, they're paying that. So they might get a zero premium Medicare Advantage plan, but they're still paying their money to the government. So that doesn't change. Whichever one you pick, you're still paying that Part B premium. That's super important to understand. The middle column is somebody that's getting the Plan G. Plan G right now is the Cadillac of plans. So this person's getting a Plan G. They pay a flat fee. Every single month, they're paying $150 a month just because they want a Plan G. Whether they're sick, healthy, doesn't matter. They're just paying $150 a month. Think of it like your car insurance. Every single month you're paying your car insurance, not only the months that you crash or write and do things, right? So you're just paying that flat fee and you got to be okay with that. Deductible. With the middle column, the Plan G, the Cadillac, you pay a deductible, annual deductible of $257. That will probably go to $288 next year. Right now it's $257. But then after you pay that, everything is zero. Whether you go to a specialist, whether you're in the hospital for 6 weeks, if you have chemo, radiation, skilled nursing for 100 days, physical therapy 26 times, whatever. All those things will be zero, 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 zero. That's what people really like about Medicare supplements. If you get very ill or you come into Medicare and have cancer, get a supplement. Okay. Everything will be paid for you and you won't have any issues. Okay, so it is wonderful coverage, but it comes with that price tag, and the price tag goes up. We've had high increases for the last couple of years with Medicare supplements. You don't get dental coverage, you don't get vision coverage, you don't get the freebie things that are thrown into Medicare Advantage sometimes. So people vacillate, they really want both, and you can't have both. You can't, there's no way to get all of that for zero premium. It's just not possible. Person with Medigap also has to add a separate drug plan. Whereas the Medicare Advantage plan people, they can get zero premium plans. Some have deductible in their plan, some don't. They all have a max out of pocket. And that's a positive thing because they do have a max out of pocket where when everything adds up to 7 or 8 grand or 5 grand or whatever it's going to be, the legal limit's up to 9,350, but it does stop, right? So when you have all those services and you get, a cancer diagnosis, you might cap out at 5 grand, but at least you do cap out. If you're in the hospital, it just depends on what's the copay every day. If you have chemo, radiation, it's a 20% co-insurance. I will say 20% co-insurance on cancer. That's really what gets people to their max out of pocket quickly, which is why anybody with the Medicare Advantage plan, please, please, please get a cancer plan at the very least, because the average age even of a diagnosis is age 66. We see a ton of cancer, unfortunately, and chemo radiation is what's going to really get your price tag up there. So at least if you get a $10,000 plan, it pays 2 years potentially of your copays. Okay. Skilled nursing, days 1 through 20 Medicare covers. Beyond that, 21 through 100 is the plan. And you have to go to a facility that accepts your plan, things like that. Physical therapy is going to be per charge. Could be $20, could be $40, $50. It just depends on the specific. Everything is very, very plan specific when you're on the Medicare Advantage side of things. Often there's some dental, there's often vision, but it's very specific as to the plan, the dollar allowance, they really range. And drug coverage is built in. It's typically zero premium, but it doesn't mean that it's free Medicare drugs, okay? A lot of people tend to think that means free drugs, okay? So the reason why we try and really, really get you all to understand that you have 2 options is because of this rule right here. There's a Medigap open enrollment period of time that each of you have. And this happens to you one time in your entire life, and that's it. It does not repeat. It doesn't come back to you. It happens when you're 65 or older at whatever point you're starting your Part B coverage. So that means if somebody is 68 years old, they have deferred their Part B with Medicare because we told them, hey, you're working, don't get Part B yet. Come to us at 68, we'll help you turn Part B on. When they turn it on at age 68, they get 6 months to go get any plan they want. They could be coming to us retiring early because they got a cancer diagnosis, and we're like, well, that's fine. You can get any Medigap plan you want. Pre-existing conditions will not matter. Okay. Important to know because the people that leave employer coverage at 68, they might go to Medicare Advantage for 4 years because they never heard of Medigap. And we just had this happen. Somebody called, he's 73, had no idea. Somebody put him in an Advantage plan a few years ago. All we can tell him is like, you have to go through medical underwriting now. So he has to go through medical underwriting. He doesn't think he will pass. His wife will. So we'll move one, but it's a very real thing and it happens all the time. So he had no idea, never heard about Medigap, and now he has to go through underwriting. So after 6 months is done, you are opening yourself up to a medical underwriting. There are 3 states, New York, Connecticut, and Massachusetts, where underwriting doesn't exist, essentially, and they can move around and do what they want. Michigan, Florida, Ohio, every other state is not like that. Okay, so you need to be careful if you have especially an illness, or if you're concerned long-term about getting an illness. You want to be sure to get the right kind of policy right out the gate sometimes, because there's rules for all these things. Ken, you're asking there's a huge price difference in Plan G policies, and this is a great question. If they all provide the same coverage, why not choose the least expensive? The reason is the carriers. The carriers, and like right now, there's Farm Bureau that is showing the cheapest plan out there. Farm Bureau, in my opinion, is not a Medicare supplement company. So very good chance in a couple of years they won't even be offering the products, and then you're in a closed book of business, we call it. There's just a number of companies that show up on the list if you go to Medicare.gov that are not companies that we would recommend. And that usually it's that. It's just that they're not really in the game of Medicare supplements. It's short term, you might be stuck, things like that. And being stuck is a very real thing. So that's kind of a nutshell answer for that question. But it's a great question, and everybody asks that. When you look at Medigap, if you're looking at Medigap as, hey, I gravitate to that kind of stuff, and that's what I want, break it down into these 3 things. Plan G is one. This is the Cadillac. You can see exactly what it covers. Everything basically, other than the deductible. Plan N, middle of the road. And I pulled in this place, like Kenneth, I pulled the cheapest. So these were Farm Bureau rates, I believe, for the first 2 at least, 113 and 89. So, and I'm trying to show the exact lowest for this zip code today, right? I don't agree that the lowest in that case, is the best one to get. But that's a different conversation. But I'm showing the lowest. Plan N, $89. Plan N introduces some copays and things like that. I think Plan N is a great option. My husband has that plan. He's had it for 4 years and it's worked very well. It's been great. And then there's high deductible G. So people are just starting to get some traction with high deductible Plan G. You can see how cheap it is, $37. That's not Farm Bureau. I think that was Globe Life. That gives you a deductible of $2,870, which sounds really high to some people, but when they understand how Medicare pricing works, most people aren't hitting that deductible. They are not. So there's a lot of bonus, to going with that type of a setup. And then we kind of walk you through that kind of stuff. We do have some videos about this. High deductible G is great to pair with that cancer plan, indemnity plan, things like that. It's a good way to keep yourself in a Medicare supplement for the long haul, because rates, they do climb, they go up. This was a projection I did for somebody. I just keep it up here because it's interesting. This was a Florida person. So we were talking about high deductible G down there, and he couldn't get it through his head. I'm like, look, if they both go up 4.5%, high deductible G tends to go up just a few percent on the national average. Plan G, the last couple of years have been going up 10 to 20%. But let's just say they both go up at 4.5% forever, right? Forever. That's fine. $55 is the starting point for high deductible G, and this is Florida, which is pricier, $225 for a Plan G down there. So let's say they both go up 4.5%. Go to year 25 and look at those huge number differences, right? The high deductible G person is paying $165 a month. The Plan G person is now paying $677 if they didn't get priced out prior to that. So it's an enormous difference when you're looking at it like that. And that's just presuming Plan G goes up 4.5%, which will never, ever happen. It's probably going to go up on the average of at least 5 to 10 or 15% over the next 10, 20 years. Okay. So it's just something to consider. It's just a different way to look at things these days. And people are opening to that after the last couple of years of pretty high costs. And what it does is it keeps people not in Medicare Advantage. So some people are just absolutely anti-Medicare Advantage. So that's a way to stay out of Medicare Advantage, keeping a supplement, but keeping your rates kind of low. This I thought was interesting. It was the Milliman Retiree Health Index. It just came out, I think, about a month ago. But this is by state. So these are people with original Medicare plus a Plan G and a drug plan. So it's interesting showing the total spend. So Michigan looks to be about 240,000. It's a healthy 65-year-old living till age 88. So they're saying that's kind of what you're going to pay with the Plan G plus original Medicare plus your drug plan. And then compare that to this. You're looking then at Medicare Advantage, 140 to 160,000 for Michigan. So what's interesting is, and I agree with this, I agree with the numbers, because with Medicare Advantage, and we've built calculators that are out there available to you all to look and play with too, where you can factor in what you think will happen, how many, hospital stays, how many, all that kind of stuff with your health. Medicare Advantage typically over to age 88 is going to win price wise. They are going to win with prices. They just are. However, what you cannot build into the price is the issues with prior authorization. You can't do this, you can't do that, you have to do this, you have to try this therapy first. That's the stuff that makes people crazy, right? So though on paper Medicare Advantage will win, you want to then think about the psychological component of your insurance. What is your insurance for? Are you the type that just doesn't want to be told what to do? Medicare Advantage may not work well for you, even though you could save $60,000 over that span of age 65 to 88. So I just thought it was interesting. I think it's factual. It does support everything that we agree with. It just you cannot build in that psychological piece there, unfortunately. So Medicare supplements, great for people that just want ease. They're willing to pay for it. They're snowbirds. Budgeting if you have cancer, it's very, very easy. And then there's Medicare Advantage for pure affordability, like we just went through with that map. Zero premium. You got to be okay with networks, and people under 65 are typically Medicare Advantage folks, things like that. Veterans are a great group for Medicare Advantage, things like that, because they can use the VA and Medicare Advantage. So flipping over to the drug plan side of things, and we'll kind of wrap up. You get a penalty if you're not enrolled in a drug plan. So do not ever not have a drug plan. All right. I don't care if Social Security didn't tell you about a drug plan. I don't care if you don't take any drugs. I don't care if your friend said don't bother, you don't need it. It's not true. You'll get a penalty if you're not enrolled in a drug plan. The other thing that can happen is you might not be enrolled in a drug plan now, and then you get AFib next summer. You can't come back in June or July and get a drug plan. You just can't get it. You're going to pay cash for Eliquis, which is pricey. So it's not worth doing right now. There's zero premium plans out there. Just get a zero premium plan. Check your plans annually. I talked about that Aetna plan that's now $78. We've got people in it that are taking one medication. Don't stay in that plan. Go to a different plan that might be zero premium. So you have to check. Okay. So that is one area where insurance companies have all but cut agents out of the equation for drug plans. So it's very, very hard to find an agent that would actually help you do your drug plan. So we have videos, and even our clients, we do it the first year. We put them in the proper plan, and we tell them you're going to learn how to do this yourself, and we're going to give you videos and tutorials. We'll be here for questions, but we're not running drug plans. Like in the old days, we used to run drug plans. We do not do that anymore. And like I said, agents just don't. The insurance companies will not allow us to enroll into the plans. They hide the plans from us. Sometimes they hide the plans from the consumer. So it's a pretty not good industry right now with that respect. So it's making it a little more complex on you all. Here's some good resources with the drug plan related things, just a list. Amazon, some things we hear some good things about, cost plus drugs. Always check manufacturer assistance. I had a couple of requests today about I think Xarelto, Eliquis, things like that. There's patient assistance programs. There's plenty of places you can look to. Look at ChatGPT. Ask ChatGPT, hey, I'm on this drug. What can I do for price reduction? It'll spit out everything and give you the direct information for patient assistance and things like that. It's super helpful. In 2026, there's a $2,100 out-of-pocket cap on drugs. It's been $2,000 this year. That's helped a lot of people, and then that's kind of hurt some people too, because the drug plan companies are not going to absorb the cost, right? So they're just not going to take it on the chin. They're going to shift it to somebody else. So let's recap quickly. Just know when or when not to enroll into Medicare. Okay. Valerie, the recommended site to check drug plans is medicare.gov. If you go to our YouTube channel, the most recent video we have is our how to find your plan. Okay. It's been well watched, and and Cameron, my son, goes through every step of what you need to do there to do that. So again, know when or when not to enroll into Medicare. That's huge. Work with an agent. I would always advocate that. Do not, even if you think you're a do-it-yourselfer and you're never gonna have a problem with Medicare, I would do yourself a favor and go through an agent, because you'll likely have something happen. If you're not going through an agent, the agent's going to just say go to the company, because we can't help everybody. We just can't do that. Oh, Sandra, thank you. He did a great job with the video. Yeah, it's easy to understand. Slow it down. We tend to talk fast, but you can slow it down in YouTube. It's just step by step. It's super, helpful and easy. If you're retiring, start about 4 months prior to coverage starting. Understand Medigap, Medicare Advantage. Okay. Choose accordingly. Protect yourself with those things I talked about, the cancer indemnity, short-term care coverage, as you're needed. Okay. So I'm going to talk about, this is the enrollment time right now. It goes till December 7th. If you miss certain things, like if you want to change from an Advantage plan to a Medigap plan, you can do that right now, or you can always do that in January, February, March. January, February, March too, if you have a problem with your Advantage plan, you can make one plan change in the latter 3 months. Okay, January, February, March, right? So just know that. And just know too that Medicare supplement, if you have a supplement right now, chances are it's not even renewing January 1st. Check your renewal date, but they can be moved any day of the year. Okay, everybody right now comes in with, I got to check my renewal for my Medigap. No, it renews in May. Okay, and you can change any time of the year. It's not tied at all to this enrollment period of time. And people just never understand that, but it's not tied to this enrollment period. So when should you start learning this stuff? Please start learning at 64 and a half. Ask us an email. Just send us an email. Hey, my brother said this. Should I be doing this? And we'll ask you questions, but don't do the wrong thing and then come to us and ask the question. So many people do that. Well, I did this because my brother said to do that. Then we have to tell them they're wrong, and then they get mad at us and they have to go fight with Social Security to unwind some things if they can do it. Don't do that. Just ask in advance. Please, please, please come on these webinars, ask the questions. Okay. Go to our Facebook group. We have a private Facebook group where we answer Q&A all the time. Same thing. Go in there, ask our questions. At least get the answers before you make the mistakes. We just implore you to just ask questions before you make mistakes. Go to YouTube. This is where Cameron's got all his videos. They're excellent videos, very, very detailed. Every topic you can imagine is out there. And we've got an online course. We've got a podcast. We've got all these resources right here. We house them in this. It's called Medicare Launchpad. If you go here, it links you to our next webinars and everything. So everything we could possibly think of is in there. Okay. Let's see what else. And this, if somebody wants a phone call, you schedule a call on our website, just like that. You can call the office or schedule. I'm going to dive into the questions now. I'm going to leave it on this screen as I am talking, though, in terms of this is our coverage area. And I did see something about Texas on here. So let me start at the top here. John, and feel free to keep typing, you guys. My wife has typical corporate coverage, okay, which I'm a spouse dependent. Open enrollment now. Sounds like we should consider her optional cancer indemnity insurance coverage. I certainly would, John. I just think anybody at any age should be looking at these things. They're just not made aware of them. And you can stay on the corporate coverage as long as that all makes sense. You definitely do that for her, you, anybody else. But yeah, absolutely. What's the recommend? Okay, Medicare.gov was the website, of course, for the drugs. I didn't talk about dental. Yeah, advice on dental's really tough. It's harder sometimes than Medicare. I would start with your dental office. Well, I start two things. If you're on employer coverage, take your dental with you via Cobra if you can. They typically will give you 18 months with that. And at least it gives you 18 months to figure out what you want to do with dental. Dental is very difficult to deal with. The dental offices don't even give you the right plans. We've gotten to the point where all we do is pretty much Emeritus and Delta Dental in Michigan. I think Delta Dental is overpriced. I think Emeritus is a very solid plan that a lot of dental offices take. A lot of people just pay cash. A lot of people negotiate cash discounts with their dental office. But I would also start at the dental office and ask them what plan they think is effective for their customer. They know what they're billing. They know that, they know all the plans that they take and things like that. So that would be my 2 cents on dental. Tim, yes, we do lots in Texas. So no, it's our agency and 3 or 4 of our agents are licensed in Texas. So you would just go to our scheduling link and book the Texas appointment. Sandra, my mother's 87 with an Advantage plan and with an Advantage and high premium. So I mean, those two things don't normally go together, Sandra. So Advantage plans typically don't have high premiums, but Michigan does have a couple where there's $250. I think there's no reason to be on those plans. So if she wants to switch to original plus the Medigap, she's absolutely going through medical underwriting. And at 87, it's extremely challenging to get somebody accepted. I will just say that. And she has to be pretty darn healthy for age 87. I need to mention too that if anyone has an Advantage plan, like let's say your mother's 87, but her Advantage plan is being terminated this year, Sandra, if it's terminated, she has the ability to go to original Medicare plus the Medigap without any medical underwriting. So people don't usually know that. A lot of agents don't even tell you that, but that's one of the rules. Okay, if you lose your plan, or you move to a new state or county, anything outside of your service area, you get to leave your Advantage plan and go to a supplement without medical underwriting. But in her case, if the plan's not terminating, she just is going to go through underwriting voluntarily. She might get approved, but there's a good chance she is not. However, if she has an Advantage plan with a really high premium, I would definitely, if we can help in your area, I would get her a plan that doesn't have a high premium, because there's no reason really ever to have a high premium plan. Kenneth Kornacki, do plans, Medigap dental drug roll over from 1 year to the next if you have no changes? Thank you for asking that. So yes, they will. If you set your Medicare up at 65 and never touch it, it'll never change. And the only thing that honestly we care about that doesn't change is the drug plan. I don't want anyone to stay in a drug plan every single year without looking to make sure it's the right one to be in. Medigap, we try and do the right plan up front, the right company. It's never going to be perfect. So no matter what you pick is never ever going to be perfect. But it's not going to hurt you like the drug plan stuff is. Medigap, like I said, you could be stuck in it. You could have a cancer diagnosis and never be able to move, but it's always going to roll over and no one can take it from you. Okay. And the only reason they can take it away is if you don't pay your premium. But your dental, your Medigap, you should just kind of let those things go, unless you want to go to Medicare Advantage down the road, things like that. But drug plans, always, always, always check your drug plans and don't always let them run over. I'm 62 now. Patricia, can I work with your firm a short-term care plan? Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Call us for short-term care, or does your team work with people 4 to 6 months from 65? Oh, no, it's a great question. We'll work with a 55-year-old right now, for short-term care, indemnity, cancer, all those things. Absolutely, right now. But then 4 to 6 months out, we would just say, okay, let's do your short-term care now, 62 years old. But then, boom, let's circle back. You'll be in our system even, and based on your birthday, it'll send you a note saying, hey, you're 6 months from Medicare. Let's start seeing if you need Medicare kind of thing. So you'd be in our system at that point. But no, we would absolutely love lots of 62-year-olds to be buying this stuff early. I'm 60. I bought it, and I bought actually 2 short-term care plans because you can pair them up. So I have one with Manhattan, one with Aetna, and I bought them at 59, 58 and a half, somewhere in there. And I've locked my rate in because these plans don't have rate increases. They technically can, but they've never had it in 30 years. So I'm pretty comfortable that they're not going to have a rate increase. And I've locked in my rate at age 59 going forward. So it's very, very wise to do that. Typically, would cataract surgery be covered under Part B? Yes. So Part B services are typically going to be the cataract surgery because it's usually an outpatient, not an inpatient hospital stay. You go into, a little surgical center, and it all falls under Part B as in boy, even the follow-up visit, things like that. Sean, looking for coverage beginning February 1st, Plan G versus Plan N. You know what, Sean? It's going to depend on what you like and cost sensitivity, things like that. A lot of people now are shifting and doing Plan N more, for sure, more, and then high deductible G, and then taking the $30-40 savings and buying a cancer plan with that potentially. So it's kind of a good strategy too. Just think what you can afford long-term and what you're comfortable with. Blue Cross Blue Shield. Yeah, thanks. I kind of figured she would have a tough time getting accepted. Yeah, she at 87 is just challenging, very tough. Valerie, I turned 65 in April. We'll need to sign up for Medicare. What month do I start the process of signing up for that future date? Well, if your birthday is not April 1st, Valerie, you're going to start signing up January, February, January 1. So January 1st, as long as your birthday is not the 1st of April, you can just go online, January 1. You can set up a call with us at the same time. While your Medicare is processing with the government, we'd be talking to you about Medigap, Medicare Advantage, plans that you want, all that kind of stuff. But you're going to sign up January 1st. Sharon, do you need a short-term care plan? No, you don't need it, but this is a great question. And a cancer plan if you have original Medicare and Medigap plan. No, nobody needs it. It tends to be more of a want product. We've seen definitely over the years a shift towards people wanting it. Same with cancer plans because, the short-term care, I think everybody should look at because everybody will probably have some sort of care need at some point. And if you're the type that doesn't want your kids to have to do that and things like that, you plan for it, right? You plan ahead. Cancer plans are a little different because even though you have Medigap now, people do get priced out. They come back into us at age 75 now or 78. They can't afford it, right? They're saying, I got to go to Medicare Advantage. If you do that, at least you have your cancer plan, your indemnity plan, you've got those things lined up and you've got them set in play, right? Since you were age 62 or 65 or 66 or whatever. So again, they're just not a need to because your Medigap is great, but also your Medigap plan N, plan G, and all those plans, They're never going to pay for transportation, getting you to Mayo Clinic or for a second opinion or for flying one of your kids across the country to come stay with you for a month because you're exhausted and stuff like that. So that's the stuff that you can never rely on your insurance or Medicare to pay for, right? But if you get 10, 20 grand from a cancer plan, do whatever you want, go on vacation, whatever. Tom turned 65 in March. I understand enrolling in A and B December 1st. Yes, I understand we connect with an agent for Plan G, drug plan, and cancer plan. Have I got that right? You do. You do. Exactly, Tom. So you're doing exactly that. You enroll December 1st. And then while you're doing that and letting the government process their stuff, get with us if we can work in one of your states, right? Get on our calendar and our agents will go through all those other pieces with you and all the pricing. Here's why the carrier, get everything enrolled. You got it. You have it exactly right. Bill, I will turn 65 in February, continue to work for an employer with 20 plus employees and will be enrolling into Part A only. Okay. What is the secondary role Medicare plays? Should I incur hospital costs? Is that covered on the over 20 Medicare site? It's touched on, I guess. It's just, we just say, as long as you're not putting money into an HSA bill, you would get Part A only. And Part A is just going to coordinate with that, your work coverage, should it be necessary. You may never be hospitalized, or you may never incur Part A services, so it may never happen. Generally, it doesn't, but if it does, it's going to offset your deductibles. So in theory, Bill, if you've got a $5,000 deductible with your work plan, and then the government's deductible is $1,676, in theory, you pay $1,676, and the difference between that and $5,000 are absorbed by Medicare. Okay, so again, that's in theory. Sometimes HR people can tell you differently, but in theory, that's how it's supposed to work. But they just coordinate. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Can you get a cancer plan at age 87? Oh, the premium could be high. I've had an 83 or 84-year-old get one, and it wasn't too crazy, but you can get them at any age as long as you can qualify. With the cancer plans, there's only 3 questions that are qualifying, and it's basically, do you have cancer? Have you had cancer? Are you on cancer medications, or do you have a undiagnosed mole, sudden weight loss, things like that? So 87, you never know. You never. Tom, you're retired. Okay, good for you. So you definitely need Medicare. Definitely need Medicare. So you can dig into, Tom, you can dig in. And actually, when you guys set up appointments with us, you get a confirmation, you get all this information. Like in the screening tool, it just says, what are you most interested in? And so if you say Medigap, then you're going to get a whole landing page full of stuff and just, videos to point you in the right way. We want you to be really, really educated with this so that even by the time you hit us on the phone, you guys are asking great questions, you know what you're doing. And then it just makes life a lot easier for yourself, for us, for everybody. And then going forward, the expectation of what we'll be able to do, what you need to do, which is basically looking at your drug plan, paying attention to our emails. We don't try and over spam. We want you to pay attention when we do say things, but we're kind of your Sherpa, your guides as you go, down the road of Medicare. So that's kind of our role. All right, we got through all those questions. Oh, it's pretty good, just an hour. So if anybody else has any questions, I'll kind of sit here. Oh, I think, if I'm not mistaken, somebody put a hand up, but I don't see that right now. I guess I don't see that. Sandra, good. I'm glad it was helpful. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, you are welcome to email. I get emails all the time. It feels like that info@gmedicare team email right there on the left-hand side will come to me so I can answer your questions. A lot of stuff can be answered via email, believe it or not. It's not, it's a really nice, quick way to get your questions answered. And thank you. Oh, thank you, Bill. Thanks for being here. I think, Bill, you're in the Facebook group, if I'm not mistaken. So I appreciate all you guys actually paying attention to this kind of stuff. It's not the most exciting topic, but it is an important topic. So you are welcome. So the next session will be January. I will start putting all those lists out there. We'll kind of come up with topics. And we'll, kind of stay connected during the year doing this. Thanks, Nancy. Great. Thank you, Sharon. Thanks, Richard. Thank you guys all. I'm glad you got something out of it. If you didn't, and I didn't answer your question, feel free to email me. But otherwise, we will see you in January and have a great holiday. And if anyone needs their Medicare, well, don't forget to do your drug plans. Okay. Thanks, Chad. Appreciate the happy holidays, everybody. Email Janet is on here, info@gmedicareteam.com. It's right there on the screen. So you can take that down for a second. Thanks, Amar. Thank you so much. Yeah, like I said, if I didn't get your question, just shoot me an email and we'll get you all set. You guys all have a great holiday. Appreciate that. Thanks, Rodney, for sure. For sure. I spent a lot of time on my email. All right. Good night, everybody. Stay well.